asked everybody to send a one-liner. Why are you part of ACE? And I want to read just a couple of them. I belong to ACE because the members are role models who stimulate my professional imagination and demonstrate creativity in action, while the programs are practical and as well as broadening. I belong to ACE for the relationships with other members, professional and personal, that expand my knowledge and who are interesting, talented people who enrich my life. These are the reasons that people are in this organization. So if any of you who are visitors are stimulated at all and want to talk, there, on the back here are all the websites. I'm happy to have any of you contact me. I'll have lunch or coffee or whatever, because we're looking to have this organization, which has lost a number of members who have moved away or taken full-time jobs during the downturn in the economy. We'd love to have more members join ACE so that we have a big group like this every time. So if you're interested, please contact me or Jay or anybody that you see on the back here. We're all prepared to welcome you. And with that, are you the introducer? Susan's going to introduce this morning's speaker.
Because Jeff Lambden has the flu. Oh. Jeff. Yeah. Thanks for coming this morning. I just want to briefly fast forward. In March, our speaker is going to be Chuck Lawton, who is a very prominent Maine economist. So come to that meeting. February, as somebody mentioned, maybe that next month, I'll be doing the round table, and it's going to be about mentoring. How do you find a mentor? How do you be a mentor as consultants? So please come, it will be great. Adam Burke, who is our guest this morning, hello Adam, I told him I wouldn't make him talk today, is our February speaker. Adam is the co-founder of TEDx Dirigo. Everyone familiar with TED Talks? I went in October, just blew me away. And also the co-founder of the Treehouse Institute. Details are on our website, so I won't run you through the whole thing now, but it's going to be great to listen to you, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Now, what do Jon Stewart, Ray Romano, and Chris Rock, and all of us have in common? We need to tell really good stories, one thing. Second thing is, we all have the privilege of learning something about that from Tim Ferrell. So, Tim.
You're all very funny, by the way. You're all in show business. You have businesses, and you have to put on little shows occasionally. So, imagine that you were with me 4 days ago in Dallas, Texas, at a meeting for Dr. Pepper. It's a big sales meeting. 3,000 people in a very large ballroom, very high-tech, lots of production value. And the CEO of the company, first speaker, gets up and very deliberately says, the best thing to drink to quench your thirst is a glass of water. And the audience is sales reps. And you can feel the room lean in. He's got them. He owns them. And it was sort of irrelevant what he said after that, because it was such a shock to hear him open with this statement. And basically what followed was, here's my forecast, here's our strategy, and he wrapped it up by taking a sip of water and saying thank you. And he got a standing ovation. Not because he was the boss, it was because he really grabbed their attention and held it. Next speaker up. God bless him. Moves up, there are 40 screens around the room, and PowerPoint, boom, pops up on all of them. And this gentleman says, "Good morning. I have 27 points I need to cover in the next 90 minutes. I heard you say, ugh. These sales reps are A-types. The was, ah. And then not only that, as soon as what happened there? Can anyone just acknowledge what happened right there?
He set them up to already have an expectation that was not negative.
Exactly. I've got numbers.
A lot of time.
Yes.
No board.
And, I mean, there's a template for presenting, and one of them is, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And in this case, it was, tell them how you're going to bore them, bore them, and then tell them how you bore them. You're absolutely right, though. Those numbers are, why would you tell anyone how long they're going to have to be in their seat? Why? Why would you do that? Why would you put a time frame on it? Just let it be. But worse than that is I have 20 odd points to make, and then you have it projected on the screen. You're just going to sit there and go, is he on 3 or 4? 15. Okay. What lunch is it? 19. Okay, we're almost there. Like I said, all of you are in show business, and so am I. And according to Ray Ruthier and Susan, I seem to know what I'm doing when it comes to that. I teach stand-up comedy, and I enjoy that a lot. Now, the people that come to these workshops, they run the gamut, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and it's a 7-week workshop, and at the end there's a show. But I also work with professional comics. And I'm not allowed to talk about that, much like many of the clients that I work with. This is a real struggle for me, by the way. I have clients who's like, I can't tell you the name of the gentleman I work with at Dr. Pepper, but I'll tell you, it was the guy that used the water. They want to remain anonymous. They don't want you to know that they've been coached, but there's nothing wrong with that. And the same with the comics that I work with. And there's a reason why they want to protect themselves. But there is a connection between the way a stand-up comic works and the way a good presenter works. And that is, number one, they understand their audience. They understand why their audience is there. They understand what their audience needs. And number two, they're very economical. Stand-up comedy is really like extreme presenting. And again, one of the fundamentals of presenting is open, strong. So anytime when I got here, everyone wanted to talk about comedy. Comedy is very subjective, but the more I talk to, the more people I talk to here, the more I heard various names come up. So everyone's got a favorite comic. And those favorite comics that you have all have this thing in common, which is they understand I need to open strong, and then I need to put all my other content in the middle in some logical, concise way. And then I need to close strong. And for a good presenter, any of you here, these elevator speeches were wonderful, by the way. You do have a sense of humor. But the same for all of you. And it's just a really simple template, which is open strong. And then keep your content concise. And then close strong. Now, I think we've had, Susan, you've had a number of people in here before me. F. Lee Bailey, you had Randy Judkins. They're all going to cover the same basic points, and I can reiterate some of them, which is, what does an audience retain? How much information does an audience really retain? And they do studies all the time on this, and they bat a lot of numbers around, but maybe 8-9% of what you're delivering. Is that a problem? No, that's human nature. But if this poor gentleman at Dr. Pepper who said, I've got 26 points and you're going to be here for 80 minutes, you're toast. You're done. They have stopped listening. They have stopped listening. So, in terms of presenting, there's a way you can break it down. One is just physically, how are you going to work? And there's a lot of rules that go with that. One is always show up to the room before you're about to present and figure out what that room is. This is not much of a room. This is really an easy room, actually. I don't need a microphone. I don't have PowerPoint. I don't even need this back here. But check that room out. What's my introduction? Susan was terrific. She kept it really tight. There are presenters out there that will be sabotaged before they even hit the stage because they haven't connected with the person that's going to introduce them. And that person may or may not be the appropriate person to bring you up. But if you know what you want in terms of introduction, then connect with that person that's going to introduce you, and make sure that they've got it right. And less is more. Just get me up there is what I usually say. Just get me up there. Now, I could have started this morning with, good morning, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think all of you would have, on some level, that's what you're almost expecting. That's predictable. And we all understand that exchange. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to, well, I think you all know it's a good morning. I think you know that it's a pleasure to be here. So why not start with something that's going to really grab the audience's attention? Opening strong. Opening strong. Opening strong. If you can, especially with an audience like this, if you can make eye contact with people, if you can just look people in the eye and talk to them and have a conversation, you're halfway there. It's a big part of the physical. This is not really a podium. I don't know what this really is. It's a couple of bookshelves. But a lot of times you're stuck with this giant podium, and you have a choice. You can either get behind it and be hidden, or you can move out into the room. And I always say, move out into the room. The podium hides you, it protects you, and it's a barrier between you and the audience. And there's a reason for podiums go way back historically when people were orators and things. But times have changed. Get out there. Get out, away from that podium and get out there and talk to these people. What do I do with my hands? I'm just going over the fundamentals. Some people are just panicked about what do I do with my hands. Well, you know, for men, a lot of times this is the fallback. If you've got change in your pocket, then you're sort of doomed. Because people will, I think I hear 85 cents right there. But I say, you know, there's nothing wrong with that or this. I mean, who was I talking about Johnny Carson? Who brought up Johnny Carson with me this morning? Thank you. Johnny, there are people out there that can break every rule I'm going to bring up. Johnny Carson was one of them. Johnny Carson was when he ran his monologue at the top of the show, hands in pockets. But what Johnny Carson has that a lot of us don't have was incredible charisma. So you're allowed, and you have that going for you. Put your hands in your pocket. But your hands are here, and I say get as much air in there as possible and use your hands. You're here to make a point, make a gesture, or something. This one always drives me crazy. I see anyone like this, and it's it's a defensive posture, whether you know it or not. But it seems comfortable at the time. But this, just let the hands go. The pacing of your presentation is really important. If you don't give people enough time to digest what you're saying, you'll lose them. The pause is the greatest thing ever invented. It's really effective, and you'll see it in stand-up also. A stand-up comic will sit on a beat. Will sit on a statement, lay out a premise, or better yet, when a stand-up comic gets a great laugh, what do? They sit on it. You never step on that laugh. You take your time. Take your time. Now, I'm a little jealous about this round table, because that's really what I'm really interested in. Is we're going to move towards that direction, definitely. Which is, I know that all of you on some level have got something in your head about presenting that you need resolved, or that you have a question about. I'm happy to talk about show business and the comics that I work with, but I'm really more interested in helping all of you succeed. And I'm going to go back to understanding your audience. Now, with stand-up, I always tell anyone who's in the business, audiences don't come to see you fail. An audience would never pay a $25 cover and a 2-drink minimum to see someone do horribly. An audience wants you to succeed, and the same goes for all of you. The audience wants you to do well. They want to like you, they want to be informed, they want to buy from you. But what do they need from you? And it's really simple. They need comfort. The audience needs comfort. They need to know that you're going to be okay, so they'll be okay. And anything else that you lay out there that is going to make them uncomfortable is where you're going to lose them. It's much like the poor gentleman at Dr. Pepper. How many minutes am I going to be up here, and how many points am I going to make? It's almost over for him. But the audience, for the most part, does not come to see you crash and burn. They want you to do well. Now, I know a lot of you are presenting one-on-one. Some of you are presenting to a small group. Some of you are presenting to big groups. Some are in this type of a setting here, the buffet room. Some are in a conference room. Some of you are one-on-one in your client's office. But nothing changes. Nothing changes in terms of how you prepare and how you deliver the goods. So you open strong, you put all your content in the middle, make sure it's concise, moves along, has a nice flow, and then wrap it up. Wrap it up. And how do you wrap it up? It's the same way that you start. You open strong and you close strong. That's what a great comic does. Again, the same analogy. When people go see a comic that doesn't have a name, they leave and they go, the guy who did the bit about the dog. They don't remember the guy's name, they remember the bit. So a good presenter and a good comic, same thing. You want to open strong and you want to close strong. Closing strong, you want to leave them with that last, and sometimes it just comes full circle. Where you started is where you end. These rules can be broken at any time, but ending strong, that's where you leave your impression. Here's a question.
You do something that I do when I present, and that is pace back and forth. And I always thought that I wasn't supposed to do that, but are you supposed to do that?
Yeah, is it distracting you? Is my pacing distracting you?
Only because I had the question.
There are presenters out there that I call them stalkers, and they're like this. They just work the stage. And there are other presenters that they look at the floor as if somewhere down there is the content. Others look up at the ceiling as if it's maybe divine intervention.
Hillary Clinton does that. When she talks, she looks at that.
Right. They're tics. But I think for the most part, moving a little bit, there's nothing wrong with it. Pacing is a problem. If you're pacing, you're caged down. Plant your feet. Plant your feet. The thing about a stand-up is, like, you can take that mic out of the microphone, but that's choreographed. Watch anyone with a microphone who's telling jokes. It's completely choreographed. They've got it down to a science. And sometimes you'll see them, microphone is out of the stand, and all of a sudden it goes back in. Why? Because they need both their hands all of a sudden to do a bit. So again, I would say, planting your feet is probably good. But the podium, if you are a pacer, I've been accused of already. The podium, this is not a podium. You can latch onto that sucker, and you can plant your feet. Yes?
Just a couple things that my limited experience standing in front of a group like this, limited compared to yours. When I teach writing instruction, one thing is, they come to the class wanting to take something away. And for me, what they take away should not be scribbling notes off a PowerPoint. So I hand out sheets.
Good for you.
I hand out sheets. Here's your takeaways. Just relax and have a conversation. And you can take these sheets home. Everything you need to know is on there. And if one of your colleagues asks a question that brings up something new, take notes. So there's no, I have to take notes because my agency paid me to be here. The second thing about this physicality, I think one of the best props, a useful prop, is a couple of flip charts, or whiteboard or blackboard, where I've got a chalk in my hand or a magic marker, and I'm soliciting ideas. And the ideas, I have a terrible handwriting, so I usually get somebody with good handwriting if mine is not working out. So therefore, they're participating. Their ideas are going up on on a blackboard or something, and this separation between speaker and recipient goes away. It becomes a conversation.
I will validate everything you've said. I'll even go farther. The idea of having someone, because this is what bothers, the only thing that bothers me about a whiteboard situation is back to, is this part, right here. But you made a really good move, which is you said, I often solicit a helper.
Right.
So it's now you very much have what I call an improv audience going here. You're not really making it up, but you're involving the audience. So the audience, the stakes are rising dramatically for you, because you're deciding to bring the audience into this process. You're breaking the fourth wall completely. But if you bring someone up, it's like a grade school. Who didn't want to clap the erasers? Who didn't want to put right on the board? It was a dream come true. So asking for a volunteer, can you come on up here and be the person who writes, yes, I can't wait. I want to be part of something. But for you, it's really wonderful because then you're not stuck with this part right here. You mentioned PowerPoint, though, which I have a really, really strong opinion about. But I'll wait. Melissa. Priscilla, I'm sorry.
You're handling questions beautifully. That's the hardest part of when I present, is when it's opened up to questions, because now I have to speak off the cuff. So what are your recommendations for handling it?
Well, a couple. One is, again, it's about really understanding your audience. So if you know who your group is, I stalked you guys for a week. I really did. I did my homework. I was a little overwhelmed, but I did my homework. That right column on your directory is overwhelming to me. Some of you have so many things that you can do. It's quite a menu you have there. But I get, Priscilla, your job is to figure out who your audience is and then try to figure out what questions are they going to ask. What would be the questions I would ask if I were them? You can prep. You're always going to get a renegade that's just going to throw you one. And there are ways to start. That's a great question. I've never had that question before. Let me think about that. The worst that can happen is if you can't answer the question, tell them that. But I will get back to you. I'll call you this afternoon. But your candor can be refreshing. It's when you try to answer something and it's out of your league. But I'm coming right back and I see it. But I just want to probe a little bit more. What exactly happens to you in the Q&A? Because I think Q&A is fantastic. It's so interactive. It's collaborative. We can figure out problems together. But what is it, Priscilla, that...
I've done quite a bit of public speaking training. I'm a Toastmaster, so I've always been told don't or have those fillers.
Of course.
So when the question comes, I'm processing and I find myself umming and...
So that's just a technicality, and that's something you can work on. I would just drill with you, which is this idea of and is really a pause. We'll go back to that, the power of the pause. If you say people are going, she has no idea where she's going.
Exactly.
If you just pause, they go, wow, she has command of the room. She is willing to sit and let there be silence. Silence has a lot of power. So it's really just a drill for you. It really is, which is just anytime I feel that urge to, I have not figured out how to answer this question yet. So I'm just going to take my time. But anytime anyone asks a question that's going to throw you right back, I start with, that's a great question. I've never gotten that before. And really, what are you doing?
Give yourself time.
Yeah, buying yourself some time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good for you.
I just wanted to follow up about renegades. I like the way that you're taking questions, and when I do presentations, I say to people, please interrupt me at any time. Ask me anything you want. And your point about open strong, close strong, every once in a while I get somebody that essentially they suck the air out of the room. Their question just totally changes the tone for everyone. What do you do then?
I am big on identifying the elephant in the room. And you can do it without making fun of that, making that person feel bad.
Yeah, there's my trouble.
Or that's it right there. If you could get a whole room to laugh, you're good to go. You can move on. But if you could, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Did I really just hear that? It's back to me. I got nothing. But again, it's almost like what I said to Priscilla, which is, well, I've never gotten that before. And again, your candor can be refreshing. I actually don't have an answer for that. Or can I come back to that?
Let me give the example that I did. Bob Woodward gave a talk at USM about his work, and as he was being introduced, the introducer said, there's a group of 8th graders here who are reading your latest book. And he made a joke. He says, nobody in Washington's reading it, I can tell you. Everybody laughed, and he acknowledged that the 8th graders were there. Well, about 15 minutes later, he used the F word in talking, and you could see the audience, which were people my age, kind of reacting. And as soon as he did it, he looks and he says, excuse me, 8th graders. By the way, I'll bet you all Googled that word 7 years ago, didn't you? Everybody cracked up, and he named the elephant in the room, and got over it and went on, and nobody lost respect for him. And I told Tim that story, and he said, perfect, name the elephant.
Good.
Well,
thank you.
First off, it's Bob. It's Bob Woodward. So you get one for free when you're Bob. You know what I mean? You really do. I don't get one for free. You guys don't know me. Nobody knows me. I'm famous to the people that know me. That's it. Did that help?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
Do you have an example? I mean, I love these stories.
My presentations are technical, and getting people to feel calm enough to ask what they think is a dumbass question is key for their experience. And so the issue is that when you get what is essentially the heckler, I'm not really that concerned about the experience for them. It's everyone else in the room that suddenly tightens up and you lose your vibe and your tone.
You use the word heckler, which crosses over into the other line of my business. When hecklers, there are about 3 types of them. One is I've had 6 Long Island iced teas. I have no idea. I'm just going to say it. Right, honey? Honey has left. And then the other is the one who truly believes, because they come up to you after the show and go, I helped you.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You interrupted me. I had them all. And the other is just the guy that needs super therapy. It could be women too, but they just need help. They're working some issues out, and they want to steal the limelight from you. Any great comic has got a whole just corral of ways to deal with a heckler, to shut them down, or sometimes just make them part of the show, depending on what condition they are in. But I love you. The audience is on your side. They know what happened. Audiences are so smart. They know that question interrupted, and they want you to resolve it, or they want that guy to go away.
They'll heckle the heckler.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Can I give you an example? I think I have an example of what Ross is talking about. So I gave a presentation very recently, and in it I mentioned something, unfortunately, about religion, indicating that religion, I know, big mistake.
No.
Religion is magical thinking, which it really is, although somebody there took very much took great offense to that. And then afterwards, when we went around the room, and I was was talking about using language in a specific way, and then she came back in and said, I don't believe a thing that you're saying because God will put the words in my mouth that was meant to be there. Boy, we talk about the air going out of the room. I couldn't respond.
And on some level, that's a lose-lose.
But I didn't, unfortunately, recognize at the time the offense that she took to it
Right.
afterwards.
And that's, I mean,
It was
what,
weeks later, honestly, weeks later.
this is hard for me, okay? This is, what did your mom tell you when you're about
Religion,
going?
politics, and sex.
Yeah, at the party, but in the room, that's especially now, everything is, comedy has changed tremendously in terms of comedy clubs because of this thing right here, this thing that has so much power. It's more like editing film quality than what Orson Welles had when he made Citizen Kane, but it is also the bane of comedy's existence and presenters, because now everything is recorded. But in a comedy club where it used to be just 100 people in a room and it was you and them, now you say something that someone doesn't like, and bam, Twitter, Facebook, Telegraph, tweet, it's out there in a heartbeat. Just heard a lady say, God is, and you're done. Toast.
Rex, you don't know the answer.
Take the reverse of that with the effect of the handheld stuff. I do presentations or talks, or sometimes big groups, sometimes middle group, trying to get them not to be doing something else while I'm in the middle of what I'm doing is sometimes almost impossible. I once did a presentation to a leadership team, and I was the only person in the room who didn't have a laptop open, doing something while I'm trying to do my thing with them. There were like 15 of them, and there were 15 laptops with people checking their email and doing all kinds of stuff, and no matter what I did, they couldn't let go of it. It was like they were like hooked, mainlining their email.
Maybe you can help me on this.
Sure, let's try.
I think there should be a rule. Like, you should be able to have the TSA at your event.
Full body scan.
Turn them in.
Yeah.
Turn the laptops in. It's not
Oh,
going to
I've done
happen.
it before.
But here's the thing. Yeah, I'm going to go back to this poor guy at Dr. Pepper who said, you're going to be here forever and I'm going to kill you. The room went into glow immediately from this.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yes. That automatic glow. Now, I don't know, but were you involved in the TEDx out at Cape Elizabeth High School?
Yeah.
My wife teaches out there.
Okay, great.
And you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. But was that control? Were the kids allowed to bring in devices?
They weren't checked, but they were definitely spoken to in the beginning of the day and before the day even happened to leave their screens closed.
If it is at all possible, there's this thing called Housekeeping Rules. And on planes, I mean, they tell you, hey, the minute you buckle in, turn it off, guys, please. The plane will crash.
That's part of making your audience comfortable. You can either do one of two things. You can involve technology, put up on your screen like hashtag and the name of your presentation so they're advertising it for you. Or if it's a small group, what I've done with my mastermind meetings is I have everybody take out their cell phone and stack them up in the middle of the table.
Great
And
game.
the first person to check their phone has to buy everybody coffee.
That's going around like a dinner now. Everyone puts the phone. But you can have housekeeping rules, and it doesn't have to be you. Who's ever opening the meeting can say, can we turn the cell phones off? Can we close the laptops? Please, you can do it. You can do it. Unless technology is directly involved. Boom, boom, boom.
I find it remarkable that we've lost a sense of courtesy.
Oh.
I was at a chamber meeting after hours on Wednesday night. Okay, and there's a new director of mental health up in the Rockland area who was introducing herself, and there's two idiots. I was standing next to a bank manager, and then these two idiots are Finally, I walked over and told them to shut up.
Good.
Because they were just being rude, and everybody's kind of looking at them and being shy and everything. I believe in audience participation. If somebody is clicking away, I'll elbow them. Put that away. Put that away. Somebody talking up there, you're being rude.
I thought you just liked me. Yeah, but
I want to meet you halfway, which is a lot of times, if the presenter is not delivering the goods, that is your fallback. Where else can I be? I'm going to go on the ship to self-discovery right now, which is, I'm going to shut out. So, but good for you. It's like going to the movies. I mean, do I need the person behind me to narrate what's going on while I'm watching the movie? No. Do I want to turn around and say something? Yes. Do I? No. Because my heart starts pounding. It's a confrontation you don't want to get involved in.
Thank you. I was just going to say, you finalized, when you were pointing out fingers, next speaker, sorry, what I was going to say about using the technology to your advantage when you're a presenter. I engage people. I tell everybody to bring their cell phones out, and I give them a website to go to, because we're going to use something called Poll Everywhere.
There you go.
And we're going to ask only 2, maybe 3 questions that helps the audience self-identify themselves such that the rest of the topic they're actively engaged in. And so that works. It works well. And then I just wanted to say a plug for ACE. You'll notice that nobody here had to be told to leave their electronics home or close their screen. We like it here. These are engaging discussions.
sometimes you are engaged with your phone, though. And I'm always worried when I pull my phone out and a speaker gives me the glare. I am promoting the speaker and talking about how I love this to my hundreds of other folks that are watching me now.
Sure you are.
Yeah. That's the issue.
Let me ask you this. Could it wait another 30 minutes? Does it have to be? Because that's this weird sense of urgency about, I need to be doing this right now. I'm sorry, I spent a lot of time in New York, and now on the street, it is dangerous to walk the sidewalk in New York now. It is dangerous because this is what's going on. So I have no problem with you in like saying, this guy's great, I can't wait to tell everybody. But nobody else knows that is the bubble of your head. It could be, honey, get me out of here. When's dinner?
It's incredibly frustrating. I mean, I think it's industry specific. With my industry, everybody is live tweeting as you're talking. I mean, the conference is happening, and there's an entire back channel going on. And as a speaker, the first thing you do is after you've had your great things here, that you go back and you look at the back channel and see what did they really think. Right. And it's usually everybody has the pounds, the hash sign, to tweet, it's happening. With mine, 90% of the audience is getting some. If they like a nugget, it's being tweeted out. And honestly, we're following conferences that we're not at as they're live happening. It's just ingrained in my industry.
This is a very tough call for me. It's a very tough call for me. I'm coming to you, Arthur. I'm coming.
So part of what we do with the TEDx events, I learned from Big Ted, and they're watching these trends, of course, and trying to adjust the culture at their own conferences. And so what Chris Anderson really does is invite people to be present and give themselves the gift of being present in multiple ways. One is to interact with new people throughout the day, but also if tweeting and blogging is a useful tool for you, try doing it at the end of the day. Just this. Don't worry about getting caught up on sound bites. Give yourself the chance to reflect and then use these technological tools to be part of your reflection process. And just try it and see how it works. So it's all about invitations is how they set it up. And that's what I try to do as well.
The technology we have is incredible. It's wonderful. And it's also the end of the world sometimes to me. It wasn't that long ago that you would go to a conference, you'd sit in a ballroom, you'd watch a great presentation, and then everyone would go up, and then it was just, where's the bank of payphones? I've got to call my office. I've got to check in. I've got to tell somebody how great this conference is. But it could wait. When did we get to this point where it has to be a live tweet? I get it, but it does drive me crazy. It does drive me crazy. I'll tell you what, comedy clubs are going to start frisking people. They're going to start, because this is not, it's not right. It's not fair for, what can I say? Ray Romano's working out some new material, and
Yeah.
it's not fair. It's not fair that he's being recorded in a small club where he's trying to work something out, and it's on YouTube within 5 minutes. And it's not fair. It's not ethical. And he came into this small club to work out this new 5 minutes so it can go into his 45-minute concert. It's not fair. Arthur.
First, just a comment. I was at one of the TEDx conferences that Adam organized. They had a glow row in the back, and I wasn't sitting in the glow row. End of story. It was a positive message. I was going to compliment you on your silences. I thought they were wonderful. Really, that was powerful, beautiful silences. But I did want to ask a question. You grabbed me with the story about water is the best thing to drink. But if I try to put my mind put myself in the mind of that audience, I would be terrified. My life is about telling people to buy and drink Dr. Pepper, and my boss is saying, I'm naked. I'm going to run and cover up. What am I going to do? The question really is, how do you calibrate the amount of discomfort that you use to open up a challenge and bring about change and dramatically introduce some new idea?
I'll be really specific with this example, because this is a client of mine. And we sat down for 2 days. He was just trying to figure out how to open the conference, because he had a lot of issues to talk about. One is right now diet soda's got a problem with aspartame.
Yeah.
Yep.
And regular soda's got a problem with the mayor of New York. And water is, quite frankly, becoming very competitive. Now, the second day I was with him, I had a Poland Spring. He goes, oh, that's good stuff. We're thinking about going into the water business. So, there's a lot of beverage companies, that are Coca-Cola, whatever, they're in the water business. And not just water now. Now you can buy vitamin water. You can buy water that's enhanced, purple, green. It's water. So the way this came up was we were both desperately looking for an opening to this big conference. And when I drank the Poland Spring, he goes, there it is, right there. It's killing us. We're gonna get into the water business. And then he said, but to tell you the truth, Tim, water really is one of the best thirst quenchers out there. And I just would say, that'll get their attention. Because he had backup for it, Arthur. It wasn't like he was saying, we're all done. He had a game plan. He had a game plan for how the diet soda was going to go, and there's several other drinks in there, Dr. Pepper. He had a strategy for where the sales force was going to go and how they were going to address these problems. And his job was just to get their attention. Because this is the God honest truth.
But there are times when our message to the audience is we're missing something important. We're focusing on the wrong problem. We're ignoring some social reality or social movement, which is, until you've integrated a new vision, it is upsetting and disturbing. And there is a question of calibration, I think.
He was willing to take the chance, and all it did was create what I call the lean-in factor. They were ready to hear what he had to say.
Okay.
And then it was really about, how do we sell more syrup? Why is the syrup good? And what's the strategy you have right now for it? Because it's still a flavorful drink. It's basically what he ended up saying. It's still, it's got a special flavor to it. Up here, it's moxie. To me, does not have a very good. Yes.
How about, let's face it, the soda industry has been watered down.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Which, it hasn't really come up yet, but a lot of clients, because of my background, my corporate clients, they want to use humor in their presentations, and I am not so interested in that. It can be misused. It can be abused. I have seen some pretty scary things in my time by presenters who decided to open with a joke. Two guys go into a bar, and it's just a joke. It's a street joke. It's not even customized to the event or the point of view or the content it's about. It's just a joke. And once you've offended someone with that, it's really difficult to recover. After you're opening with a joke, you really have to finesse it. It has to be, that's a pretty good call right there. It's a good call, good mind. Yes?
Storytelling
Yes.
is what everyone is saying we need to be doing in our presentations, and that's really what people remember most. What thoughts do you have about how best to craft a story, and do's and don'ts of that?
First off, I absolutely agree. We are hardwired for them. They're primal. I used to say that, the Neanderthal, whatever, the caveman, the guy that went out and like killed the woolly mammoth and then brought it back for the tribe, he was just the guy that was good at hunting the woolly mammoth. There was another guy that was good at telling the story, and he got all the glamour and the footlights and the accolades. But yes, storytelling is really important. There are a couple key elements. Number one is, what is the purpose of the story you're telling? Why are you telling it? We are hardwired. We lean in when we hear stories. We grew up with them. But what is the purpose of the story? And then, what's the beginning, middle, and end of this story? And can you keep it economical? Does it need to be large? It needs to be tight. And is it a metaphor for something? Is it for a point that you're making? Or is it just a way to open up? Or is it something specific about your business? It doesn't matter. They're really a good idea. But they need to be crafted just like everything else, with keeping the audience in mind. What do they need to take away from this? How is this reinforcing my message? How is this carrying my message? How is this helping my message? But I find that the biggest thing is keeping them economical. Keeping them short and sweet.
You were speaking of humor. I think humor can be organic in the sense that I open up a session, people, 30, 40 people, 15 people, asking everybody to introduce themselves and why they need help with writing. But along the way, I'm picking out 2 or 3 people who might be somebody I can pick on. Not pick on in the sense of making fun of them, but they seem to have a sense of humor, and they said something that we can come back to. I can always refer back to Sam over there. Remember what he was saying earlier? And then I'll say something that has people laughing with Sam, not at him.
Good.
But you're finding 2 or 3 anchors in the audience that you can keep going back to in a personal sense. They love the attention, and they start making the rest of us laugh. It's a break.
Well, you're hitting a lot of points here all of a sudden, which is, and this is in comedy also, and it's called the bring back.
Right, bring back.
You've told the joke, you tell some more jokes, and you tell another joke that's a bring back to the joke you told 4 minutes ago. And it's a way to reinforce your point of view, your character, and the flow. And for you, it's really important because the reason you're doing a bring back is you're going to, in some way, you're forcing the audience to go, that's a big point.
Yeah.
Now I've heard it for the 3rd time, and it's been done in humor. And the other is you've identified people in the audience, like Arthur would be mine. He'd be my man. He'd be my plant in the audience. You've identified people in the audience that seem to be open to having a dialogue with you, having an exchange, have a sense of humor. And then the best part is that you're not mean-spirited. That you're having fun, not at their expense, but you're having fun so that we can all absorb this. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Laughter is a great way to help deliver a message. Laughter brings oxygen to the brain, but it also makes things memorable. So there's no doubt about it. But yes, absolutely, especially the way your style, it seems to be very open. Like it's great to interact with an audience. It makes you, it's conversational.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing about presenters that have, F. Lee Bailey was here. He insists that you memorize every word of it and rehearse it. But sometimes what happens, and he's terrific. In fact, when I watched him, I was like, wow, that's not the guy I saw before. Because he just told stories. He told incredible stories. There's a guy where he's such a raconteur, he's got 1 million stories. But I found it really interesting that he planted himself behind a podium and he had memorized, I'm sorry, I really respect him, but he memorized his content, and at some point it just sounded like that's what it was.
Right.
that he had just committed it to memory and he had made a good point. It needs to be well rehearsed. You need to know where you're going. But I also like that element of that there's a little bit of looseness to it. That it is, where have you been? I'm trying to be invisible. That there's a little bit of looseness to it. That there's some spontaneity. That it's not just in the can. That the audience doesn't get the feeling that you've made this presentation 1,000 times. And you're just another group. And then you're going to move on to the next. It's the same thing in stand-up. The beauty of stand-up comedy. There are two things. It's such a dog and pony show. Smoke and mirrors. A comic definitely knows exactly what they're doing every moment. A good one. Every moment that they're up there. Completely contrived. And yet, the audience wants to believe on some level that they're making it up as they go along. And they actually create a dynamic for that, which is when they get a laugh, a lot of comics will work the, oh, that reminds me, as if because you laughed at what you just laid out as your joke, they laughed at that, you suddenly go, oh, that makes me want to talk about this. So it gives the feeling that the audience is sort of driving the show themselves. Arthur.
I want to do a workshop on making great mistakes. And great mistakes are the ones we learn from.
Yes.
And when we get towards the end, I'm interested in some of the great mistakes you've made and learned from.
Okay.
You asked for it.
When I was a young, I started out young. I started at Second City when I was in high school in Chicago, and then I moved to New York. And here's a tough one. I used to do a bit in the middle of my routine, my act, 30-minute act, 40, whatever I was allowed to do. This is when Cheese Whiz had just come out. I think Cheese Whiz is still out there, actually. And it's cheese in a can. And you can spray it. It's wonderful. Anyway, I would always, during the middle of my act, I said, let's take a break and have a snack. And I'd take out a paper plate, a can of Cheese Whiz, and I would empty the entire can of Cheese Whiz onto the plate, which always got a laugh. I knew it would work. Emptying into this mound of yellow gelatinous. And then I would take a Slim Jim, crack that open, pop that in the middle, and then hand it to you. And say, so, enjoy, and then pass it around. And sure enough, that thing would make the round. Some people would actually take a bite. So, to get back, the club, one of the clubs, the club is, Tim, will you please stop with the Cheese Whiz? Every night that you do this, the wait staff finds the paper plate somewhere, and it's a mess, and they actually use linen on the tables. It was a big mess. And the more they said don't do it, the more I did it. So, one night, I'm at a club called Who's on First. I ended up running, actually, at one point. And it was very intimate, small stage, and people were right here. I'd be saying, sir, are you in show business? Get your feet off the stage. That's how close. So, what's your name? Susan. You're dressed very nicely there with your scarf. So I'm about this far away from Susan, and I go, let's take a break and have a snack. And I crack that Cheese Whiz can open. I hit the first button, and the top just flies off in a hunk of Cheese Whiz. And she says, what the? Do you have any idea how much this cost? I am going to sue. That's right, you did that. It wouldn't stop, and I couldn't shut her down. I was there. I paused it.
It was. So what'd you do?
Mutual. I cut bait. Because then it was like the villagers with torches. Yeah, get him. Get management in here. We worked it all out. And I have one other one. This is really, really poor. It's so politically incorrect that I did not know it at the time. But I had a line that I said once in a club. because someone had dropped a drink on the floor. And I used to say, because that happens all the time in clubs, crash, boom. And I would just say, yeah, just put that anywhere. And then one night there was a gentleman pretty close to me, and I usually watch the crowd when they come in, like you should when you present. You should watch the crowd when they come in, check them all out, see who's there. Well, I didn't this night. I was too busy goofing around upstairs at the bar. So I came downstairs, and this gentleman twice dropped a beverage on the ground. And I said, and I can't believe I said it, and I'm still embarrassed, and I'm still going to tell you what I said. I said, hire the handicapped, they're fun to watch. Horrible, horrible. I was 19 years old. I apologize. Gets worse. Because the audience on this side of the room, they laughed. On this side of the room, I got nothing. I was like, okay. So I finish out the show, and there's like, really now, it's like dead wood over here, and I'm only working half the room. So the show is over, and the gentleman wheels out. I know, I'm a jerk. But I learned. You know, and this is before all politically correct. It was everything goes days. So there's two right there.
We have time for one more.
Yeah, I have a question about knowing your audience. And in my presentations, I think, are a lot like folks in this room. We're presenting to like folks in this room. And so to know the audience, there's a certain comfort that, well, I am them, so I know them. But occasionally I'll speak to college students. And I find myself thinking a lot harder about who is this audience.
Yes.
And so, any thoughts on
yes
how easy it is to overthink that?
Well, you just said it right there. Don't overthink it. In fact, come up with a strategy to deal with it. Which is, if I had to go into a room full of college students right now, the first thing I would say is, I went to college. I think it was a long time ago. I would deal with it. There's a way, and maybe that's where humor would come in, which is just acknowledge that there is a gap between you and them, and you're gonna bridge it. But it's the elephant in the room, which is, does he know? Does he know that we're 21, 22, 23, right? I'm guessing you're you're like 39?
At least.
Yeah, okay. But I would just acknowledge it, that there's a little bit of a gap. But you're bringing them something. You're bringing them some sort of information or something of value. And that's what they take away, but don't overthink it. They're not saying, hey, he doesn't know anything, or what. That's my daughter. She's 60. She doesn't know anything. But college students, they invited you, right? Someone invited you. Someone sponsored you to go. I would acknowledge it right out of the gate.
But it's also,
not try to be them in the process.
Oh gosh, no, that's no. Oh my God, I don't even know what the vernacular is anymore, frankly. But that will kill you every time.
One add-on to that, it's not a matter of, like in the couple of cases I'm thinking of, it wasn't a matter of me knowing what I was presenting and its relevance to that particular class, but it's like, am I delivering it in a way that is going to be salient to them, that they're going to look at it and go, oh, I get that. Because I can present it to you or Arthur, and, but to a 19, 20-year-old.
Well, here, I think you're falling into the trap, again, which is that you think that they have another vernacular, perhaps, or another way of thinking, or
process,
a language. And no, they don't. If you have clarity in terms of the content and how you lay it out and how you move through your presentation, and they find you interesting, and you've endeared yourself to them in some way, they're open to it. They're certainly not going, why isn't he using they don't. Why isn't he using all the acronyms that we throw around all day long? People, you're overthinking it, is what you are. You really are. You're there, and they're listening, and that's all you need. As long as they're listening, as long as you have their attention, you'll be fine. You don't have to You don't have to customize it to them in terms of their age. I think all audiences, on some level, it's like, sometimes it's simpler just to go, pretend like the audience is they're all sixth graders, in terms of how you simplify things to deliver the message.
Tim?
No.
Thank you.
No, you sit down. I'm not done. I'm going to finish up. We never got to PowerPoint. How many people here use PowerPoint? How many people here use PowerPoint effectively? Good for you. How many people have less than 10 slides in their presentation? Good for you. How many people use verbiage in their PowerPoint, have like words on the screen?
Good.
Good.
2 or 3 words.
Good.
Words, lots of
Good.
pictures.
Good. All right, I'm done. By the way, water.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
And maybe you can stick around for a
Remember what
few minutes.
WC
Yes, I'd be
said
glad
about
to.
water.
I'd be glad to.
Exchange cards. Roundtable will be
5 minutes.
there in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Where do you want to
actually,
go?
I'm gonna move us up one so there's more room for.
Okay, all right, good.